November, LMV-M3 OneWeb India mission rocket of ISRO. Now, ISRO has successfully completed the LVM3 M2 OneWeb India 1 mission, placing 36 satellites into intended orbits. Now, LVM3 M2 OneWeb India 1 mission is the dedicated commercial satellite of New Space India Limited. This mission is being undertaken as part of commercial arrangement entered into between New Space India Limited and OneWeb Limited. As part of this mission, 36 OneWeb Gen 1 satellites meant for global connectivity needs have been launched into the low Earth orbit. Significance of the mission: this was LVM-3's maiden commercial mission and also New Space India Limited's first with LVM-3 vehicle. The mission also has the heaviest payload with 36 satellites of OneWeb, becoming the first Indian rocket with a payload of 5,796 kilograms. Now, the Launch Vehicle Mark III, that is LVM-3, is a geosynchronous satellite launch vehicle Mark III. GSLV M3 is a three-stage medium-lift launch vehicle developed by ISRO. It has been designed to primarily launch communication satellites into geostationary orbit. It is also due to launch Gaganyaan, the first crewed mission under the Indian Human Spaceflight Program. It has two solid propellants S200 strap-ons on its sides and a core stage comprising the L110 liquid stage and C25 cryogenic stage. So L110 is the liquid stage and C25 is the cryogenic stage. It has a higher payload capacity than its predecessor, GSLV Mark II. Now, India's rockets. India currently has three operational launch vehicles, which are PSLV. It has the most commonly used, having carried as many as 53 successful missions since 1993. Only two flights of PSLV failed. GSLV Mark II, it has been used in 14 missions, of which 4 have ended in failures, most recently in 2021. Launch Vehicle Mark III or LMV-3, it has flown 5 times, including the Chandrayaan-2 mission. In addition, ISRO has been working on a reusable launch vehicle, that is RLV. Unlike other rockets, RLV will not end up in space as waste. Instead, it can be brought back and refurbished for multiple times. Now, constraints of launch vehicle. The size of a launch vehicle is dictated by the destination in the space, the type of fuel mix, that is solid, liquid, cryogenic, etc., and size of the payload. The choice of any two of these variables places severe restrictions on the flexibility of the third, which is popularly referred to as the tyranny of rocket equation. Gravity till LEO. Most of a rocket's engine is burned in traveling to the low Earth orbit because the force of gravity is strongest here. Now, the gravity of destination. If a space mission is headed towards any celestial body, more energy would be expended compared to simply attaining a space orbit. Moving on to carbon dating method, the Varanasi district court rejected the plea to conduct carbon dating inside Gyanvapi Mosque. Carbon dating is widely used as method to establish the age of organic materials, things that were once living. It can be estimated by measuring the amount of radioactive carbon-14 isotope present in the object. Now, the working principle of carbon dating method. Plants and animals get their carbon from atmosphere. They acquired C12 and C14 in roughly the same proportion as is available in atmosphere. Plants get their carbon through photosynthesis. Animals get it mainly through food. When they die, their interactions with atmosphere stops. While C12 is stable, radioactive carbon 14 reduces to one half of itself in about 5,730 years, known as its half-life. The changing ratio of C12 to C14 in the remains of a plant or animals after it dies can be measured and can be used to reduce the approximate time when the organism died. Now, there are certain limitations of carbon dating method. Carbon dating method cannot be used to determine the age of non-living things like rocks. Also, the age of things that are more than 40,000 to 50,000 years old cannot be arrived at through carbon dating. This is because after 8 to 10 cycles of half life, the amount of C14 becomes very small and is almost undetectable. Other types of dating method include radiometric dating method, potassium argon dating method, and uranium thorium lead dating method. In this method, in the radiometric dating method, decays of other radioactive elements that might be present in the material becomes the basics of dating method. Two commonly employed method for dating rocks are potassium argon method. The radioactive isotopes of potassium decays into argon and their ratios give a clue about the age of the rocks. Uranium and thorium have several radioactive isotopes and all of them decay into stable lead atom. The ratio of these elements present in the material can be measured and used to make estimates about age. Moving on to viral spillover, according to a new research, there is an increased risk of viral spillovers in some regions that can cause pandemics. Now, viruses need to infect a host cell in order to replicate. According to the research, these virus host relationships seem relatively stable within the upper super kingdoms. Now, the major groupings of organisms, however, below this rank, viruses may infect a new host from a reservoir host, in which it usually resides, by being able to transmit sustainably a novel host, a process defined as viral spillover. Many viruses in recent years, such as influenza A, Ebola, SARS CoV 2, spilled over to humans and caused significant diseases. Now, researchers collected samples from Lake Hazen in Canada. Based on the study, they concluded that climate change is melting glaciers, and this could create a possibility of emergence of new viruses trapped in the ice for years. The hosts, which are humans and animals, can move to previously inhabitable regions and can come in contact with such pathogens which would cause viral spillovers. Moving on to autonomous vehicles. Autonomous vehicle manufacturers like Tesla face several challenges, including lawsuit over fatal accidents associated with these vehicles. An autonomous vehicle, that is a driverless vehicle, is able to operate itself and perform necessary functions without any human interventions through the ability to sense its surrounding and algorithm driven software. Now, autonomous vehicles have several advantages like cutting transportation costs, reducing emissions, reducing accidents due to human error, and reduced human stress. Ethical issues with autonomous vehicles, giving control to the driver. Tesla vehicles require the driver to be ready to take over control from the autonomous mode at any time. If an accident occurs, there is a question of who is responsible for the accident, resulting loss, driver or the car. Now, in case of accident, who will be held accountable, the car owner or the manufacturer? Now, decision maker, generally the ethics of self-driven car are determined by engineers who work on the car's technology. What they deem right or wrong determines how the car will act in certain situations like accidents. There is an argument whether engineers should be given this responsibility or should government set the ethical standards. Program the car to make an impartial decision. The best way for a self driving car is to make an impartial decision in case of accidents. They must not discriminate between humans on age, gender, or any other parameter. They should always make a decision that causes the least impact. Loss of jobs due to automation, job loss to drivers without compensation, compensatory skill development, and job creation. It is believed that in coming future, automation will kill 69% of the jobs. Hacking dilemma. There is always a risk of cyber criminals hacking into a car's system to gain access to sensitive data or carry out a misdeed. Moving on to oral rehydration therapy. Now, Dr. Dilip Mahalanobis, the pioneer of oral rehydration therapy, died recently. Now, oral rehydration therapy involves providing drinking water with modest amount of sugar and salts, specifically sodium and potassium. It treats dehydration due to fluid losses from diarrhea. Earlier, fluids were administered through intravenous route for the management of cholera. This required trained medical staff for administration of fluid. Only sips of water without food were provided. It wasn't the underlying malnutrition problem. Dr. Dilip Mahalanobis developed the oral rehydration solution. He mixed salt and sugar solutions in drums and administered it to cholera patients. This was much simpler treatment and didn't require specialist medical workers. ORS reduced mortality due to cholera or acute diarrheal disease from 40% to 5%. Impact of oral rehydration therapy: an estimated 54 million diarrheal deaths were averted by ORT alone between 1978 and 2000. A Lancet editorial in 1978 termed it as potentially the most important medical advance in India. A current Science article in 2019 noted ORT remains the greatest contribution from Indian subcontinent towards achieving sustainable development goals. That will be it.